If you want to become a nurse or a midwife or any health practitioner, this is your site. Just subscribe, follow us for your studies. We bring to you notes online, we teach you online. Whilst you are in school, this will even help you for better improvement. Just subscribe and like the video. Let's continue. Today we'll be looking at first aid. First aid. Get your book ready and your pen. Write down some notes whilst we explain.
Accident, that is that first treatment. So as let me just put it this way, the first treatment you administer to someone who is in need of medical attention, but that first treatment which you administer to that person so as to keep the person going or to keep the person safe, before proper medical attention is being administered to such person. All right, so that is the meaning of first aid. So another definition says first aid is an immediate assistance given to any person suffering from either a minor or serious illness or injury, with care provided to preserve life, prevent the condition from worsening, or to promote recovery. That's just it. Okay, let's say for example now, at times you might have maybe an headache while at home or in your school. So what do? If it is at home, you just visit your first aid box, you look for what? Paracetamol, yes or no, and used to subsidize the headache. And if you feel that the paracetamol you take is not working very well, what do? You go for a proper medical checkup. Likewise, if it were to be in a school environment, you understand, maybe you have a stomach ache or something else like that. So if it is stomach ache and you go to the medical center in your school, you understand, so you'll be given what? Mist mag, something like that, either mist mag or paracetamol to take, isn't it? That's just it. But if the situation worsens, then such person is being referred to the hospital for proper medical attention. All right, so first aid is to prevent worsening of the present situation, to prevent worsening of present situation which the victim of maybe sickness, accident, or injury might actually be going through. All right, so it includes initial intervention in a serious condition prior to professional medical help being available. Just like, let's assume you are working in the kitchen now and you mistakenly cut your hand with knife, you understand, so your mom or the person that is actually with you we tend to stop the blood flow from gushing out of your body, yes or no. So that is a means of administering first aid. Then after that has been done, if the cut is wide, then you can now be taken to the hospital for proper dressing and medical treatment. All right, so that's just it. So the person that administers first aid is usually known as what? A first aider. A first aider gives this immediate help to the casualty while making sure that the casualty and those around the casualty, including themselves, are safe. So in a hospital you have a nurse or a doctor, but at home or in your school, in case of any slight accident or injury, you have the first aider. So you also can act as a first aider. That is if you have the proper training, and the organization that engages in the training of individuals to administer first aid is known as the Red Cross Society. That is in Nigeria. So we have the Red Cross Society. So they are the organization involved in the training of individuals who administers first aid treatment. All right, so from there we move to the next subtopic, which is the first aid box. All right, so a first aid box is a compact rectangular box where first aid materials are kept. It is usually made of wood, although it may be made of plastic or metal. That's just it. So first aid box is just a chamber, or a safe where first aid materials are being kept. All right, and it can be made from several materials ranging from wood to metals or plastic. All right, or plastic and other materials like that. All right, so this is a pictorial example of a first aid box, and this is a pictorial example of an open first aid box with the first aid materials right inside of it. All right, so we move to the next slide, which is first aid materials. So the picture popping up right now shows several first aid materials. So mind you, first aid materials are more than this. All right, They are more than this. So I'm expecting you to make more researches and look for more materials that can be found in a first aid box, or materials that are used to administer first aid treatments to victims of accident, illness, or injury. All right, so from here we move to the next slide, which is titled types of first aid. All right, so take a look at this very picture. You can see this picture. The person there is actually on motion somehow. Yeah, the person there is actually running with what? Running with a first aid box. So this very first picture explains the first type of first aid, which is titled what? Which is titled the emergency first aid. Yeah, which is titled the emergency first aid. So emergency first aid is exactly the first response to a life-threatening medical emergency. It is the urgent assistance given to the victims of major disasters such as accidents or health problems. Example: an accident victim, an asthmatic patient, a drowning swimmer, among others. That's just it. So in emergency first aid, yeah, the victim needs to be attended to rapidly or quickly. Yeah, you don't act slowly. Yeah, the first aider in this particular scenario must not act slowly, must not act sluggishly. So you must be fast in your acting. All right, so unlike maybe someone who was actually playing football and actually fall down, or maybe a sprinter that actually bruises his knee, you understand? So that one doesn't require emergency first aid because it is not a life-threatening situation. But in case of life-threatening medical emergency, you understand, then emergency first aid is being administered to. Just take a look at a drowning swimmer. So someone that is actually swimming and got drowned, and you're now like you are now walking sluggishly. Let me wait small. Let me stretch my hands small before attending to someone that actually got drowned. If care is not taken, that person is going to just give up the ghost. So you need to attend to such person immediately. All right. So you can't actually show the same attitude which you apply to someone who actually bruised his or her neck to a person who is actually drowning. No, you don't show that same attitude. Okay, just take for example, maybe you are working in the kitchen, you understand, and let's say when you wanted to cut the vegetables, one of the vegetable leaves actually dropped to the floor. All right, that's a scenario. And take a look at this other scenario. Maybe you left something on fire, you understand, maybe a palm oil or a groundnut oil, you left it on fire and the thing actually caught fire. So which one are you going to attend to first of all? It is the palm oil that actually caught fire you are going to attend to first, because that requires what? Immediate attention. The vegetable leaf that actually fell from the table to the floor, you can still pick that up later. It has no hazard or injury. Yeah, it doesn't affect the building, but the palm oil that actually caught fire what affects the whole building. So you attend to that what first. So emergency first aid requires what? Swift and immediate response. All right, so the second one is what? Is non-emergency first aid. In this particular scenario, the victim here doesn't require urgent or immediate attention. All right, so this is the treatment we initiate ourselves for minor medical needs. All right, it is the assistance given to the victims of minor health problems. We may or may not seek more advanced medical care after the initial response. That's just it. E.g., students who get injured while playing on the field or while working in the school workshop. So let's assume maybe I was actually participating in a sprinting competition. I was actually running. So maybe then I tripped. So by the time I tripped, so I bruised my ankle, you understand? So I can still actually stand up again and continue the race. Maybe after the whole race, then go home or go to the medical center for them to help me help me clean it. You see, in such scenario, it doesn't require what? Emergency attention. Yeah, it doesn't require emergency attention because it is what? It is not life threatening. It is not life threatening, unlike a drowning swimmer in the emergency first aid scenario. All right, so from here now we move to the next subtopic, which is what? Importance of first aid. Why the need for first aid? Why do we need first aid? All right, the very first one here is what? Is to preserve life. Yeah, to preserve life. So before the arrival of medical personnel, or before the victim of accident or major disaster or injury is being attended to, so such person needs to be taken care of. Yeah, so if there is nothing like emergency first aid, you understand, maybe there is a car crash accident or something like that, and there is nothing like emergency first aid, then before the medical personnel people actually comes to the venue of the accident, such victims there might have actually give up the ghost. That's just it. Might have actually give up the ghost. So emergency first aid is needed was to preserve life, before proper medical attention is being administered to the victim. Right. So the second one there is what is to prevent illness or injury from becoming worse. Yeah, to prevent illness or injury from becoming worse. Okay, you're having headache or stomach ache, so you'll be given what analgesic first of all. Yeah, so as to limit the pain. Then if it reoccurs, you can now be referred to the hospital. All right. So and in most cases, if you take analgesic, maybe paracetamol or Panadol, you get killed easily. So that is to prevent that illness or injury from becoming worse. All right. Number 3, the third one there is to relieve pain if possible. Yeah, is to relieve pain if possible. That's just it. So number 4 is to promote recovery. And the fifth one is to protect the unconscious. So let's assume the victim there is a victim of an accident situation. So such person might actually be unconscious. Yeah. So as to protect such person and their property. So that is also responsibility of a first aid, and that is one of the importance of first aid. All right. So from there we move to responsibilities of a first aider. Mind you, I said that person that administers first aid, to victims of accidents or injury is known as a first aider. So then what are the responsibilities of a first aider? The very first one here is to assess the victim situation quickly and calmly. As a first aider, in case of accident or injury or even maybe slight headache from students, the first thing you need to do is to assess the victim situation quickly. You don't just go into treatment. No, you assess it, you examine the situation. That's the very first thing you need to do as a first aider. All right. So the second thing there is to protect the victim from excessive loss of blood. So let's assume in case of maybe bleeding, bruises, wounds, you understand, or injury. So if there is too much loss of blood from the body, such person can actually go to the unconscious state, and if care is not taken, such person can actually give up the ghost. So to avoid that, as a first aider, you need to protect the victim from excessive loss of blood. All right. So the third one there is to protect yourself and the victim from any danger. A first aider needs to protect his or herself and the victim from any danger. All right. Number 4 is to prevent infection between you and the victim. As a first aider, you prevent infection between you and the victim. All right. Number 5, you allow the casualty access to fresh air. So let's assume in case of maybe an accident scenario, people you want to gather and start wheeling here and there. So if as a first aider you are there, you ensure the people move back after extracting the accident victim from that particular area. Allow them access to fresh air, because that goes a long way. That goes a long way to calm them down. So you allow victim of accident or fatal scenarios to you allow them access to fresh air. It is actually needed. It is actually needed, right? So the system one there is you comfort and you assure the victim. You ensure you allay their fears. Victims might be scared. You understand? But you tell them that don't worry, all is well, just calm down. You understand? You try to calm them down, because that actually has a long way to go in their recovery process. All right. So number 7, you assess the casualty and give first aid treatment. So after examining the situation, okay, it is something which you can say actually administer first aid treatment to. You do that as soon as possible. All right. Number 8 is arrange for help if needed. So if the situation you actually find yourself in is actually out of proportion, so you need to arrange for help. You need to arrange for help. That is, contact medical practitioners so that they can actually take over from wherever you actually stop. All right. So that is it. So then we move to the ABC of first aid. That is the next subheading, ABC of first aid. All right. So the ABC of first aid is an acronym for A stands for airways. All right. B stands for bleeding, and C stands for circulation, which is otherwise known as as pulse. All right. So these 3 important aspects of human physiology are very essential in the application of first aid to victims of accidents. All right. So then the next subheading is application of ABC of first aid to victims of accidents. So ensure you have the meaning of this ABC. within you. Ensure you have the meaning of the acronym. A stands for airways, B stands for bleeding, and C stands for what? Circulation, or what? Or also known as what? Also known as pulse. All right. So application of ABC of first aid to victims of accident. So the first one here is what? Airways. The airways are the pathway through which air passes from the nostrils or mouth into the lungs. There is a tube called trachea which runs from the neck region to the lungs. If there is a blockage in the trachea during an accident, the airways will become blocked. Yeah. So this may lead to the death of the victim. Hence, the airways must be taken care of during the application of first aid to victims of accidents. The steps taken to ensure the proper flow of air in the airways are listed below. The very first one there is what? Check if the victim is conscious or unconscious. The second one is check if he or she has a pulse. Yeah, if there is still circulation. All right. So the third one there is check if he has open airways by checking to see that the mouth is clear. So the fourth one there is if the mouth is not clear, open it and clear the content. The fifth one there is if the victim is unconscious, put breathing. If the victim is unconscious but still breathing, turn him on his side carefully and ensure you keep the head, spine, and neck alignment. I think there is this particular video that will actually explain everything that actually has to do with airways. Yeah. So take a look at this very picture. You understand? So that is how you are going to actually do it. So you ensure you just lift the chin. You lift the chin upwards first to ensure the airway gets open. All right. So take a look at this very video. I think this video explains it all.
This animation will show how to open an airway. Click the navigation arrows below the animation screen to play, pause, rewind, or fast forward the animation. If you find someone unconscious, you first need to check that the area is safe, and then check the response of the person, the casualty. This animation assumes that you, the rescuer, have already carried out these stages. Now you're ready for the next stage of the rescue, checking the airway. To tilt the head and open the airway, press down on the forehead with one hand, lift the chin with the index and middle fingers of the other hand. If you think the spine may be injured, take extra care when lifting the chin. The airway is now open. This is the end of the animation.
Now, right?
Click on the animation screen to watch it again.
That is how to actually open a blocked airway in an accident victim. All right. So the second application of ABC of first aid, the second one there is what is bleeding. B stands for bleeding. All right. So patients that actually having a bleeding problem, how do we attend to them? So bleeding is the release or outflow of blood from the body as a result of damage to the blood vessel. All right. So excessive bleeding of an accident victim may lead to death. It is therefore important that first aid application should take care of bleeding in the victims. You know, part of the importance of first aid is what is to prevent excessive loss of blood. All right. So bleeding actually refers to what the outflow of blood from the body. So at the first aid, you must ensure you prevent excessive loss of blood so as to keep the victim conscious. You understand? So that's just it. So below are the necessary steps to be taken in the application of first aid to victims of accidents. All right. The first one there is use a polythene bag or latex glove to create a barrier between you and the victim's blood. You understand? So as not to get yourself contaminated. We don't know whether the victim actually has some viruses or some diseases attached to him or her. So as to protect yourself and the victim, use a polythene bag or a latex glove. You understand? To act as a barrier between you and the victim. All right. So the second one there is if the bleeding is severe, use a thick but clean cloth to press firmly against the wound to allow the blood to clot. All right. So the third one there is if the blood soaks through the cloth, do not remove it. I am very sure this is a mistake most of us actually make. So in case of bleeding situation, by the time you put maybe the first material to actually stop the blood or to hold the blood in place, by the time that material gets wet, you understand, we tend to remove that material and put another one. That is very wrong to do. So this third point says what? If the blood soaks through the clothes, instead of you removing the clothes, what you need to do is what? Add more clothes, add more clean clothes, and ensure you don't use dirty clothes so as not to get the face of the injury infected. So ensure you make use of what? A clean cloth. a clear cloth. All right. So the fourth one says, look out for broken bone. If there is a broken bone, don't lift the victim because the edge of the broken bone may cause internal bleeding. That's just it. So just take a look at it. Even broken bone aside, let's make wood as a sample. So just carry a wood and just break it. By the time you break a wood, the junction at which that wood is damaged, you can see that that junction is what is usually rough. There will be sharp ends, sharp bends there, so which might actually injure you. You understand? So the same thing applies to bone in junctions where bones are being broken. So if care is not taken, such rough edges like the one you see in a wood also applies to a broken bone, and if you just mishandle the victim, you can actually injure the victim more. You can cause more harm to the victim. So that is why it is advisable to look out for broken bone, and if there is any broken bone, ensure you don't leave the victim because of the edge of the broken bone may cause additional bleeding, which is what internal. All right. So the fifth point here is that if there is no broken bone and bleeding persists, lift the wound above the level of the heart to reduce blood. Yeah, lift the wound. So in these cases, it is usually important to just lift the, if it is maybe a wound on the leg, you understand, what you need to do is just put the person's leg on something like a stool or a chair, you understand, so as not to prevent the surge, the outpouch of blood. So by doing such, you are trying to like suspend the blood to go back to where it is actually coming from. You know, blood comes from the heart here. From the heart, it flows to the whole body. So, but if you lift that area where there is bleeding above the heart, somewhere above the heart, so blood won't flow from the out to the lower concentration. That's just it. Blood won't flow from the higher concentration to the lower. So it is going to actually go back to where it's actually coming from. All right. So which is going to actually reduce the pressure at the wound. So the sixth one says, call for emergency service. Call for emergency service. All right. So then we have types of bleeding. We have the arterial bleeding, which has to do with injuries on the artery. We have the venous bleeding, which has to do with injuries on the vein. Then we have the capillary bleeding, which has to do with injuries in the blood capillaries. All right. So, and to actually stop bleeding, this is actually advisable at the somewhere above, above the heart where the blood is actually coming out. Ensure you tighten that area. By the time you tighten that area, it reduces the rate of blood flowing to where the cut actually occurs, so thereby limiting the outflow of blood. That is what this picture is actually trying to explain. All right. So from here we move to the third aspect of the ABC of first aid, which is what the circulation or pulse. So this is the flow of blood around the body. It is necessary for blood circulation to continue as first aid is applied to victims of accident. That's just it. So the very first thing you need to take note after checking for airways is okay, bleeding stops. So you need to look for the person's pulse or circulation. If the person is not breathing, then there is no need of carrying out first aid. So if the person is not breathing, then that shows that the person is dead. So ensure the person is breathing. So if the person is breathing fine, or maybe the person has a seizure of circulation, so then this third aspect actually what comes into place. So below are the steps needed to be taken to ensure circulation during the application of first aid. Number one, avoid contact with body fluids such as blood and saliva. In this age of COVID-19, so you can't just get yourself in contact with anybody. You understand, less of the fluids coming out from another person's body, so as not to get infected with the virus. So all you need to do is avoid body contact with the fluids of such person, such as blood and saliva. So the second one there is that monitor the breathing of such person. The third one is that if the victim is unconscious, lay him flat on his back and place the heel of one hand in the center of his chest and your other hand on top. So that's trying to resuscitate the person. You understand? So the fourth one is close the nostrils, place your mouth firmly over the open mouth and blow firmly into his mouth. So that is what we call a kiss of life. You understand? So you give the person something like a kiss of life so as to resuscitate the person. All right. So the fifth one is you repeat this as often as possible. The step A to D, you repeat it as often as possible every 2 minutes until the person actually gains consciousness and circulation actually takes place in the victim's body. All right. Then the sixth procedure is to call for emergency services. So all that I've said earlier on, this picture actually depicts all. Take a look at what is happening. You can see the man standing is pressing the person's chest, while the person towards the head is giving the person